Hi, folks. We're Tacitus today. Tacitus today, your pushback channel. Thank you for joining this audio live stream. I suppose a video that's or an essay rather that's somewhat controversial. What is the suitability or non-suitability, as I'm alleging, of women to be in managerial or supervisory roles? I say this generally. There's always going to be an exception. I actually haven't met one, but I don't doubt there are exceptions out there. And because we've gone through an affirmative action DEI craze for 25 years now, longer, 30 years, there's a lot of women in managerial positions just because they're women. And if you look at all the surveys on discontent, most of the surveys or the respondents to surveys say they're discontented and they've got female bosses. They say the pettiness and the childishness and the so on, the playing in the sandpit, the doll's house and the like, and the way the methods and devices that women use for not including people that have fallen out of favour. They're much less inclusive than men, but for different petty, childish reasons. Now, I've got a sort of a recent example of this, which I think illustrates it well. And it's not that women are unsuited, just as in all women are unsuited. It's the sort of behaviour women use in the workplace that makes them unsuited. And they won't stop this sort of behaviour, which I'll illustrate this with. And this is a recent example. I was going to have a series of meetings with various groups that were all within a fairly small, like in a small sort of compact business district. So we were going to be walking to and from a number of meetings. They were going to be discussions. We would come back to meetings. So that was the deal. Now, I was going to do that with a colleague. The colleague couldn't do it, so I was going to do it on my own, and I'm quite comfortable in doing that. But an organisation we were allied with, to some extent, these two women who had sort of, I don't know, mid-level manager, maybe a lower mid-level perhaps, they wanted to come along. And they convinced their boss, who was a little soy boy, by the way, convinced their boss that they should go. So he kind of left it to me and said, well, I don't mind, but you have to convince Billy Bob. And so the soy boy didn't tell me. So it was a bit of an ambush. The women sort of appeared at the door. Have you got a moment? And, yeah, what is it? And they said, well, we want to come to this. Now, the thing with this is that they wanted to come because they thought there was glory and prestige and look how tough we are. And, we can play with the big boys, a very childlike perception of what was going to happen and how business was transacted and the interactions that were necessary to have a successful series of business interactions. So they had a very childlike, perspective, and one that was very much based around how they would feel. They wanted to feel important. They wanted to feel, that they were playing in the big league, and they wanted that glory and prestige as they saw it, which was being denied them by the patriarchy. Now, I wouldn't say that either of these two were radical feminists, but they're still on board with the lingo and the language that if they're being denied anything that they want, it must be because of the patriarchy, misogyny, the glass ceiling, and yada, yada. So they've bought into all this, which is really just an excuse for covering up for their own inadequacy. Now, neither of these two women were particularly bright. And I went over with, now I tried to talk them out and said, look, you don't have any of the credentials or qualifications necessary to contribute to this conversation, these business conversations. You don't have anything that you can contribute. And they instead of, well, yeah, okay, you're right about that. Instead of doing that, they say, oh, well, that's just mansplaining. That's just a man's perspective. We bring a woman's perspective. And so my question is, well, what perspective is that? How can that perspective add value? We don't know, but only a misogynist would ask. And so I went through it, and they weren't being, vicious or nasty about it. They were trying to sort of include it in almost a humorous context that they wanted to come and didn't see why they shouldn't. And so I said, all right, then, well, look, there's a lot. It turns out there's going to be a lot of walking back and forth across this central business. We're going to probably do 5,000 meters of walking, going around doing this stuff. So, both of these women were pushing 200 pounds, and they were in their early 50s. They weren't fit, and they didn't look like they could walk, 100 100 yards, let alone 5,000 of them. So I was looking at them, and so I said, look, can you really do this? I mean, really, can you do all this walking? And they waved aside and pushed away that, no, there's nothing wrong. But this is where the rub comes. They want to be part of the game, but they can't back it up. And they've got nothing to back it up with. And I found this throughout my working life. I've had women constantly coming to me. I want this. I want the nice office. I want the higher paying job. I want the accolades. I want the glory. I want and so on. But when it's okay, well, you have to then produce results and be accountable for it. Oh no, I don't want that part. That part I don't want, but I do want and this was another one of those. Now, again, I'll go through how women behave to try and take control of a situation without overtly doing so. So we're in the taxi going to the place, and then one of the I'm in the back seat. One of the women's in the front seat with the taxi driver. So the woman who's sitting, she's on the other side of next to the other door, and I'm next to this door, so we're not even close. And she bumps along by a couple of inches. Then she says in a whiny voice, "You're squashing my arm. You're squashing my arm." And she says it like a little child would say it. And I said, "I'm not anywhere near you. I'm not touching you." "Oh, yes, you are. You're squashing." And okay, so I thought, oh shit, this is it. Now, this is a way to get control. You've done something wrong to me. You've done something bad, and you have to be guilty for it. You have to be ashamed for it. And then that gives them, the woman, that gives them an excuse or a reason to not take responsibility for something. Why should I have to take responsibility when you squished my arm? You're the problem here, not me. I'm the victim, and you should be sorry for what you did. And that means you can't hold me accountable for something. It's that sort of interplay. Now, as we had to do a lot of walking, and the both women weren't up to it, like I said, and I have to stop for a minute. I have to stop. I'm not feeling well. I hurt my foot. You have to slow down. Why are you walking so fast? You're walking fast because you don't want us to be here. And so every little thing to slow things down, to walk slowly, you have to wait. And I was saying, look, it's urgent. We get back to this meeting. So, really, we have to get on with it. So every little trick of victimhood, delay, slowing down, foot dragging, the whole thing was to demand that the man, which was only me in this instance, that the bar had to be lowered. Everything had to be slowed down to suit them. But what was sort of interesting here is how they gloated in any little victory of getting me to slow down or accommodate their silly childishness. They treated that as a victory somehow. They gained a level of control. They gained a level of moral control over the man. And they viewed this as a victory without realizing it was having the opposite effect, that I was determined, I'd be determined on pain of death never to include them again in anything. So they only were proving that they were unreliable, they were childlike, they weren't worthy of any sort of supervisory role. Whatever they said in terms of their capability and their desire was, their desire to be included could be taken with a pinch of salt. They had no desire for responsibility or accountability or delivering the results. The only thing they wanted was the glory and the handouts, which very much sums up the attitude of so many women in so many situations. Whenever they're supposed to be accountable or they're required to deliver a result, they go into this childish sort of little dance macabre where they try and avoid. But if you try and hold them accountable, they're very quick to come out. You're a misogynist. You're a fascist, and this and this could be uniformly sort of applied, I think, all over the Western world. I'm yet to come across a woman who has not behaved that way in a supervisory role. It's different when a woman's at the entry level job. We say, do this, do that, do that. And it's a small chunk of work. Do that. Then you can often, but even then, they still try some approximation of that. This reminds me when I was a kid. I was 13 or 14, and this buddy of mine had a 10-year-old sister, And she was about as devious as you could possibly get it. I mean, at 10 years old, I couldn't dream of being that devious. But she would, she would sort of sit nearby, where we were. We'd say, well, let's go out to so and so, or let's go to the beach, or let's do this, let's do that, whatever it was, and she would hear this, and she was purposefully parking herself nearby so she could. So she would come in with a very sort of girly smile type thing of, oh, can I come too? I just overheard you were going to the beach, and can I come too? And now we're going to go out and do surfing and this sort of thing. So she can't surf. One of us would have to stay with her, and it just was inconvenient all around. So, no, and then she would instantly start crying and screaming, and she would run to the father, and so and so, can't even remember her name now, but I'll think of it. Steve and Billy Bob won't take me to they won't let me go. They said no, that I couldn't go. I only want to go. I only want to go to the beach. That's all I want. And so the father, who would always take her aside and everything, would come marching in, big, and he'd wag the finger. How dare you treat your little sister that way? If she wants to go, she can go, and blah, blah, blah. And yes, Steve, my buddy, would explain, well, look, this is why it's not going to work. I don't care. You're just trying to be unpleasant to your little sister. That's all it is. And then she would pretend to cry, but would then you'd see her little, her face would come around the door, and she'd have this smirk of total victory. Now you have to take her. And again, she set the whole thing up. And so we go to the beach, but as we're walking to the beach, I can't walk that fast. And she would take these ridiculously small little steps, as slow as she could, but enjoying you have to slow down for me. I can make you change your behavior to suit me, and I can do whatever I want. I can walk slowly and you have to go slowly. I can make you do whatever I want you to do. That type of attitude. But again, it was a 10-year-old. She had this sense of great victory, that she was in control. She was in charge by pretending to be a victim. But they always had to be, these women are always the same. There has to be the big strong man somewhere in the scene, whether it be the police or the government or the father or the whoever the fuck it is, the boyfriend, or so something is going to come along and you better do what I want, or I get my boyfriend, I get my man to beat you up. It's that type of scenario. And so we get to the beach, and then we're going, oh, you can't go for a surf because you have to stay with me. And then she pretend to fall over, that she pretend to hurt herself, and she would then start crying, oh, I've hurt myself. You can't go surfing. And it was the whole, now this attitude, this is a 10-year-old girl. This is the same thing that women have as they grow up. Now, whether they're allowed to do that, their mothers do it and they see that, or it's something else, but it's a way that women can get control of men without having to be accountable for anything, without delivering results. It's always his fault that it happened. And so these grown women in their 50s were doing this. And it was, I kept a straight face. It was driving me crazy. But this is how so many women behave, and why I believe as soon as you see that sort of behavior, then, in my view, they're simply not suited for any supervisory role, whether they're even suitable for the workplace at all. You've been with Tacitus today, your Pushback channel, and thank you for listening.